9:30 this Monday morning, September 24th. Do you want to do just a round of introductions? I'm Scott Diener.
I'm Sean Kucharty, City Council member.
I'm the Director of the Department.
Colleen Michael from WSU Kitsap Extension.
Carrie Salee, Long Range Planner, DCD.
And I'm Fred Chang, one of the council members.
I'm also on the council members too.
Okay.
Okay.
He's the chair of this committee.
And the chair, yes. So with that, it's your first up.
Excellent.
So
Thank you for having me here. I coordinate, I'm with Washington State University Kitsap Extension, and I coordinate the Master Gardener and Rain Garden Mentor volunteer programs, as well as lead low-impact development trainings for industry professionals. And in fact, here's a flyer from an upcoming training that we're doing for landscapers, small builders, septic installers, so on and so forth. I know that Zach has come to many of our trainings. In any case, thank you for having me here. The purpose of this brief presentation is for me to investigate an opportunity to partner with the city of Port Orchard for a demonstration garden through the Master Gardener program that would benefit the citizens of South Kitsap. And I dropped off these packets a few weeks ago with specific information about the Master Gardener program, each of our current demonstration gardens, and then also a couple of documents about the very specific site parameters that are needed for a sustainable location for a demonstration garden. So, just some quick background. WSU Kitsap Extension has operated here, partnering with the county and municipalities since 1917, which means we celebrated 100 years in the community last year, which is pretty cool.
yeah.
The Master Gardener program started at WSU in 1973 in the Seattle-Tacoma area, and then began in Kitsap in 75. So that's a long-standing and very successful program that is now in every state in the union, and now international. Countries from Canada to South Korea have Master Gardener volunteer programs. In the Kitsap program, we have on our roster 297 active volunteers, and we have 4 demonstration gardens, which I'll go into in a minute. But our volunteers are trained educators. They undergo, in the course of a year, more than 80 hours of formal classroom training. They have to take exams, and then they have a minimum hours requirement that they have to meet to become certified in our program. And then thereafter, each and every year that they want to continue to be in our program, there's requirements for volunteer hours participation, continuing education, so on and so forth. So our volunteers are very much trained educators with our program. This is the Master Gardener mission, but in a word, our volunteers seek to improve the health and well-being of our communities through environmental education. All right, so I mentioned that we have 4 demonstration gardens right now. Learning gardens are how we refer to them, where our volunteers teach the life skills of growing groceries in your backyard, reducing the impacts of stormwater runoff, natural yard care techniques, and so on and so forth. And in your folio, as you have laid out, is a detailed brochure on each of our current demonstration gardens, where they're located, their particular focus. Of course, every site is very different and unique, depending on the specific site location, but also our partners and our volunteers that participate.
Do you have a map that shows where they are?
I don't have an overview map, but the majority of them are in central Kitsap. But I'm going to go through each of the locations and with the addresses and all of that information and momentarily. But here are some of the main techniques that we want to demonstrate. get people outdoors and active, and get kids to know where their food comes from and to actually pull stuff out of the garden and eat it. Some of the things that we focus on. So the first site I want to explain is the Anna Smith Children's Garden. This is off Fairgrounds and Tracyton Boulevard. This is our oldest demonstration garden. We celebrate 30 years this year. It's a partnership with Kitsap County Parks. And this features a butterfly house, the only one in Kitsap County, a composting demonstration that we partner with the Kitsap County Department of Solid Waste. And we're going to soon have a cistern rainwater harvesting demo that we're partnering with the Kitsap Conservation District to create. You can see that building in the background. That's our brand new shed, built this year, entirely designed and built by volunteers and funded through grants and private donations. And we'll be collecting the water off of that roof to teach people how to irrigate their gardens with roof water. Blueberry Park is another one of our demonstration gardens. This one is off Sylvan Way. We have a wonderful partnership with the City of Bremerton Parks Department. I really enjoy Jeff Alivato. He and our program are completely in line with this project. When the park was revamped in 2008, we were invited to build a demonstration garden there. There's lots of great low-impact development techniques in that park itself. You can see the porous concrete there of all the sidewalks. Rain gardens. The picnic pavilion has a green roof. This is our shed that we have for storing our tools.
Did you say that's porous pavement, the sidewalks?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
How old is that park?
You can see the park is very much is a lot older. But in 2008, Colette Berna, had done all the footwork to get all of these grants and include all of these low-impact development techniques in the revamp of the park, which had historically been a blueberry farm, hence the name. And it's a great neighborhood park. Here's an image from our summer program. We piggyback with their summer lunch program that they offer in the park with free lunches for families in doing education for the children there. Last year's numbers, we had about 131 adults coming out to the free summer program with approximately 312 kids. Sometimes they're hard to count. And that park is adjacent to the Arminjar Elementary School. So we also partner with the teachers there to bring their students out, usually 3rd and 4th graders, and they get to learn about gardening, and they get to pull carrots out of the garden and eat them and all sorts of fun stuff. So a variety of partnerships at work here for that garden.
And that one's about 7 acres, the whole site.
I don't know how large the park is. Is there might be information there on the brochure.
It says 7 acres, but is that the whole park? Is that
That's
your garden
the whole
park?
park.
I think there's a children's play area.
Okay.
nearby.
Yes.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think
there
I
is. There's.
Went there years ago before it was fully developed.
It's a fabulous neighborhood
Yeah.
park. You can see there's a lot of open space there, a lot of grass. Our demonstration garden is first and foremost when you walk in under the arbors. But there's walking paths all around. There's still blueberry bushes. There's, like you said, there's a children's play area. There's also a community garden where people can rent plots to grow fruits and vegetables. And here's the entrance to the park, and we're front and center. That's the small little parking area that has the rain gardens. This garden features local art, sculptures, honeybee demo, pollinator garden. Again, this is another composting demonstration that we partner with Solid Waste. And this is when the kids are out at the garden. They dress up the sculpture in different outfits as one of the fun activities they do there at the park. Heritage Garden is our most recent garden, which was established in 2010. This is on the fairgrounds and is a partnership with the County Parks Department. As you can imagine, being on the fairgrounds, our main focus is during the fair and Stampede. We do a ton of education. We had almost 1,400 people come through and tour the garden this summer during the hours of the fair. We taught 18 classes for kids and adults, everything from fairy gardens, how to build them, to how to prune an apple tree, and organic pest control for growing apples, among other things. It's also a compost demonstration site with solid waste, but we also have a hoop house, a native plant garden, and the focus of this particular garden is small space techniques that anybody can grow food at home, whether they're on a condo deck or have a little garden space. Last but not least, our farthest north of the demonstration gardens is at Robb Park. We partner with the City of Paulsbo Parks. Since '96, we've had a wonderful relationship with Mary McCluskey and her department. Our kids program there is especially well known. We do not need to market it. In fact, our volunteers joke that we don't want to market it anymore because the summer programs that we have are so well attended that sometimes it's hard enough to get enough volunteers for the number of kids that show up. We have the summer programs there that are free for the public, and we can have anywhere from 100 to 130 kids and their parents there to do garden activities. And we also partner with the West Sound Academy, which comes out twice a year. They come out in the spring to get us off to a good start in the garden, and then they'll be here in a couple of weeks to be able to put the garden to bed and help us plant garlic and do some other techniques. And it's a great outdoor classroom for those 7th graders. They look forward to being part of that. There's some of those West Sound Academy kids. The garden has a little library, a native plant garden, and we also partner there with the Paulsbo Garden Club. We have several volunteers from that club that come out and help us with the kids program in the summer. But they're also really instrumental in providing grants for us for structures, for irrigation materials, and so on and so forth. Many of our gardens have benefited by grants from local garden clubs, as well as other community clubs for our larger structures, our sheds, our fences, things like that. And all of our produce is grown with organic methods, and all of it is donated to local food banks. What doesn't get eaten by kids when they're out in the garden? So we really believe in reducing food insecurity, and this is one way we contribute to that effort. So some of the community benefits of these demonstration gardens is that these are outdoor classrooms that are available to the public during park's hours. They can come through informally and passively learn from the signage in the garden and the techniques that are demonstrated there, or they can come out when we have classes and attend. They're maintained and staffed entirely by volunteers. They're coordinated by the Master Gardener Program Coordinator, and they're funded by the Master Gardener Foundation of Kitsap County, which is an independent 501c3 that is around just to support the Master Gardener Program and projects like this. We do, as I mentioned, get various outside grants, everything from Lions to Rotaries to garden clubs and so on and so forth, box stores, etc., to make these gardens happen. This picture is of the Anna Smith Garden. We partner with the Martha and Mary kids. They come out and we do a summer program for them there at the Anna Smith Garden off of Tracyton. So the Master Gardener Program, our role, or my role as coordinator, is to prepare annual budgets for these gardens, submit those to the foundation for approval, apply for grant funding for larger projects. We train and coordinate all the volunteers, including leadership teams of volunteers that run the gardens and the summer program education. We do the publicity, and then I actively communicate with all of our landowning partners about all aspects of the garden, and whatever's appropriate or needs to be discussed at any given time. We require of our partners a memorandum of agreement before we develop these gardens that provide us a use of space, and use of things that are primarily already provided in a public park setting, like restrooms and parking. Depending on the location, use of picnic shelters, and most importantly, water, access to water for irrigation. Anybody who gardens around here knows that if you want to grow food in the summer in the Northwest, you need to have water. We have signage that identifies the garden, all of our partners, and the purpose of those gardens. And of course, all of those kinds of details are reviewed with the landowning partner. In particular with City of Bremerton Parks, they're very particular about what signage they have and how appropriate it is, and not hitting people over the head with do's and don'ts. And so we work carefully with them for that. So I mentioned that a sustainable demonstration garden needs very specific site parameters. The reason I'm here today is that we have been looking for a site in South Kitsap for some time. In fact, we have had many sites in South Kitsap, in particular in Port Orchard, over the 43 years that the Master Gardener program has been around, and none of those sites have lasted long. For one reason or another, the site hasn't been appropriate. I want to say that our last site closed in that was down here, was in Olalla, closed in 2015. And since that time, we've kind of been quietly searching for another site that would meet the requirements. Everything from library spaces to schools to county parks property to the port, etc., you name it. We've looked at it, or we've either had a site there over the last 43 years that hasn't worked out. For instance, Retzel and Gibbons were two sites where we had Master Gardener participation.
So why didn't those sites work?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, why did Olalla close?
Olalla was on private property.
Okay.
And
Retzel's got so much open space. What was the challenge there? Why
access to water.
Okay. I mean, we've got a site, off the top of my head, the only criteria it doesn't meet is restrooms. We've got an underutilized park that would a Sanacan facility work? Because we don't have,
No.
I mean, and restrooms are expensive to
Right.
build.
I understand that. Well,
With the regional park.
That could be a possibility.
to jump ahead,
Okay.
this site
Sorry.
checklist is one that was developed with the criterion for the site, and with a team of volunteers who have been part of gardens that have failed and have been part of garden searches over the years, went and looked at every single City of Port Orchard Parks property. The only one that was suitable and met all of our criterion was the McCormick Village site. I know that you have underutilized sites, and we get contacted all the time about underutilized sites. But they're, we evaluate each one, and for the investment of time, energy, money, staff time, labor, publicity, all of that, it needs to meet these criterion.
What is Dwight Street Park missing?
That's the central
Clayton Park.
Clayton Park? So,
Clayton Park is a beautiful, sunny, open spot,
yeah.
but the parking is horrible. And once we have one program during the week in the summertime with 130 kids and their
Yeah,
parents,
it's 2 hour
those
parking.
neighbors are going to be
Okay.
very unhappy with with us being there. They might like it on,
There's a
when there's
playground,
not a lot
there's
going on.
all the structures, there's the restrooms, but you're right, the
Yeah.
parking is a challenge there.
Yes, yes,
you
and,
need, like,
and parking is
maybe-
key.
Well, and
60
McCormick Village
spots.
doesn't have sufficient parking.
Well, and I'm wondering, with a spray play park and a summer program at the same time, it seems like they're going to have sort of
Somewhere down the road that could work as we develop more parking out there, but it won't have enough parking for the uses that we have, let alone adding.
Well, that's something to be discussed. I'm here today to open this discussion to see if the park is interested in investigating this
Paul Powers
this
Park is
opportunity.
vastly underutilized. It,
Shady, creepy.
It is shapy. It is shapy. Creepy. It's in a neighborhood. It's next to our public works facility where we've got a a reservoir that we need to demolish. We would need to get in front of that, but it probably isn't sunny enough for your needs.
It isn't particularly sunny. We're looking for locations where the public is going to be anyway. They're going to come out for other amenities, and they're going to join us at the garden. Our purpose is to really take advantage of locations where the public really wants to be, not to find a location where people don't go.
Have you talked to the county about its regional park? And
It's not really sunny. Or parts
well,
of it are.
There's
Yeah.
places that
there's
are.
open space there that's
Yeah.
underutilized now.
There's lots of locations in South Kitsap. We'd like to have a partnership with the City of Port Orchard.
Okay.
We don't have one currently.
I would too. I just for the reasons Clayton Park's, I think, probably the logical choice, but the parking,
Well, how many parking spaces do you think? Not 120. You would need maybe
right.
60 cars, or
Right. Well, that's a good question. And I don't know that exactly. For instance, Blueberry Park has a very small parking lot, but they have a lot of on-street parking. The flip side is our program has gotten so successful there that the Parks Department told me neighbors complained this summer because there were so many people out at the park.
Is it a 2-hour need or a 4-hour need for the parking?
It depends. For the summer programs, it's pretty much a 2-hour need. For our volunteers to be there on a regular basis, it's less than that.
Because we could manage your volunteers through a parking pass and make them exempt from that. I mean, council would have to approve that, but
it depends how many volunteers.
yeah,
You have to ask
we're
the
talking
neighbors, too.
6 or 8 volunteers for a program, or are we talking 50?
Well, it really depends. So on a weekly basis, we'll have anywhere from, I'd say, 8 to 25 volunteers there working on the garden and maintaining it.
But not all at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In our summer program, we'll usually have about 20 volunteers there on site, in addition to whoever from the public comes out. We have had sites where parking was a challenge, and if it's too hard for our volunteers to park, they won't show up.
Well, to bring in garden tools. They don't want to pack them 3 blocks.
Well, usually we have a shed on site
Okay.
that stores all the tools so that volunteers don't have to haul things. But to be frank, our volunteers are, many of them retired, older in life. They want to participate, but they don't want to have to walk a long way. They don't want to have to shuttle. If they have to carpool, any barrier to volunteer participation needs to be taken into account. And
How many
so
parking stalls at the regional park, the first phase?
McCormick?
Yeah. 20.
I think 20 or 30 total.
Yeah.
It's
But
not,
there's no on-street parking for overflow, so that's
no,
it.
there's none.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, in the future, that's a fabulous place. We just have to have,
We need to build the entrance off Campus Parkway where there's going to be
Right.
additional parking.
and there's street parking
Well,
along there.
the Master Gardener program is not in any rush. What we want is a garden that's sustainable. It doesn't have to be something that there's a site right now for. But we want to open the dialogue, and this park sounds like, once it's completed, it's going to be a perfect space in terms of having amenities already that will bring families out between the splash park and a dog park.
Playground equipment, restrooms, trails.
That's right.
From a publicity standpoint, I see where it makes a ton of sense for them
Yeah.
because you can introduce it to so many more people. Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Yeah. I understand that I only have a few minutes here, so the discussion is brief, but I wanted to just introduce you to what a demonstration garden is and really look at the site requirements so that we can talk about a spot. The Master Gardener program doesn't need to have another demonstration garden, but we would like to have one in South Kitsap. We're really Central Kitsap heavy right now, and in terms of meeting the needs of our volunteers, we have lots of volunteers in South Kitsap who would like to have a place closer for them to volunteer, and that's why we're looking at this. We have our foundation interested and willing to fund a new location if we can find one in Central Kitsap that meets those parameters to have it be something that's sustainable over time. So
I go back to the regional park. I know it's not city and it's not a city partnership, but it's central, for the public that uses the city. Is there a downside to that site?
I haven't evaluated that site this year, but no.
Okay.
I think having a location elsewhere in the city would be beneficial.
Elsewhere than that location?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, most of these programs are going to, the longer they've been around, like the Robb Park one, the broader the area they draw from. But having neighborhoods immediately
that's
around
one of the things that I
will-
think that's kind of nice about the regional park. It is kind of central to a lot of the residential development and traffic and people coming in from parts east.
Well, and back to the Central Park idea, though, the other thing that occurs to me is we're trying to get a lot of additional units of housing in our downtown, and I think that the demand for that type of community garden type of environment might be high. If you have 200 or 400 apartments downtown on the waterfront, and that's within walking distance of those residents, I mean, is there a reason that this shouldn't be or should this be an amenity for the downtown center area of the
Which
city?
would be Clayton Park.
Yeah,
Back to Clayton
yeah.
Park, yeah.
I'm confused about the space that you want because here we say manageable size 2,500 square feet, which is not very much space.
The demonstration gardens don't have to be large. If you look at the one that's on the fairgrounds property, it's a very small property. Depending on the site, for instance, the Anna Smith Garden and the Robb Park Garden are larger sites, but doesn't have to be. So that's an estimate based on the location and what parts of the park are flat and open and sunny and where there is water, which is a very key point. And that may be one of the limitations out at Jackson Park.
So I think we've got two viable future candidates. I mean, if the downtown redevelopment plan comes off, I think Clayton Park could be, as Nick said, a viable site. And I mean,
With
for us to
parking development?
to talk about the county's site is a waste of your guys' time. I mean, you don't have control over those sites; the county does. And I believe the idea is here to have a relationship with the city.
Correct.
And I think we're amenable to that. It's just that we don't have, at this time, a site to offer. I think we've got, Paul Powers doesn't work because it doesn't have a restroom, probably doesn't have a sunlight. Clayton Park, I don't think I think there's some parking things we could get past, but if it's not going to be successful, then there's probably not a reason to do it.
I guess I'm puzzled. Like, how big is a 2,500 square foot demo garden? Is this the site of this building? And do you really expect 20 people at a time to be there? I'm wondering if they would stagger.
I don't think it's for us to question it.
Right.
They know what
Yeah.
their needs are and what they're doing.
Right. Well, to answer your question, the Heritage Garden, for instance, is gardened all around a log cabin. That's a historic log cabin that's already there at the fairgrounds, and is long and narrow, and it just kind of developed around the open space that was available there. And yes, actually, when we have our Master Gardener training, we have the entire class go out to the garden with people that already garden there, certified Master Gardeners, and we'll have 60 people out at the garden all working in it at the same time, which we make work.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with Dwight. For example, there's a church there, and sometimes they have a lot of people who park and go to church at the same time. I think the capacity's there. I wouldn't go eliminate it. I guess I would still consider that location.
And I've got some trees, some shade trees that have been ordered. Well, haven't been ordered yet. We're waiting for the
fall.
the nursery to tell us what, we've got some ideas of what we would want to put there. So there's 3 or 4 trees that are going to get. We took those cherry trees out. They were too close to the fence, so it's blank slate right now. But we're about to plant some, nice shade trees in the northeast quadrant of the park. So that would probably, I guess we could move the trees later. It's not ideal. They're not inexpensive trees. That we're also doing a street tree project right in front of the park.
On the Dwight side, though, too, right? We're replacing trees on that side, not just the DeKalb side.
It's only on the DeKalb side right now. Just it's what we have for money. But doesn't mean that the northwest corner, there's a tree that we've planted over there. We can move that one tree. It's probably about the size you guys need over by the church. So that's a possibility.
Yeah.
What's the minimum number of parking spaces you need again?
I don't necessarily have a minimum number. I'm gonna say somewhere around 15 is a minimum number. I would have to really look at how many parking spots Blueberry Park has, and let you know based on that. Because they have a parking lot and then they've got a lot of street overflow. In looking at the parking that is around Clayton Park, there is no actual official lot there. It's all on-street parking. And I see that as a big limitation. If there were a small lot in addition to on-street parking, I think that it might
We don't have a lot
work
to
out.
offer. We just don't.
Well, I think it's great that we've had these conversations. I think everyone's in agreement this could be a neat thing for Port Orchard or South Kitsap. So let's keep the conversations open.
So where at McCormick Village Park would you envision locating this? I mean, have you, by looking at the construction plans of what we're building, is there a site that you've identified?
Well, I was here August, I think. Maybe was
Meeting
that
with
right,
Zach.
Carrie? Yeah, and I met with Zach and with one of the other planners, Stephanie, is it?
Stephanie.
Okay. And we looked at the maps, and we did locate an open area there that would be appropriate. That there were some shade trees that were planted around that area that would be enough room to locate a garden there, and would I feel fit in nicely with the space.
What is that within the ring of the commons, or is it on the side of the? Like, there's kind of in the common area that contains the 2 playgrounds and the splash park. There's a pathway that goes all the way around it. Is it within that, or is it on the side of that?
It is within that, right, Carrie?
I wasn't in that conversation.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know where you guys selected. Stephanie probably knows.
I don't have a map of that, but Stephanie and Zach and I looked at it in a lot of detail, and we looked at the space, we looked at the parking, and we felt that there was a spot there.
Okay.
Now, Stephanie had shared with me that no changes or modifications can be made to the plan for the park until the grant is completed and the construction's completed, and I totally get that. Like I said, we're not in any rush. We don't have to do this. It is something that our program would like to investigate, and we think that there could be a good spot there. And Zach and Stephanie and I looked at the site pretty clearly, and I thought that it was worth talking more about.
Okay.
Great.
So, any other questions for me?
Are the pea patches pretty much rented out? Like there's one at Blueberry Park and Rob.
There's one at Blueberry Park and one at Rob. They usually start at the beginning of the year full, and then towards the end of the season, there's spots that are available.
Oh, okay.
So Stephanie said that what she remembered was the commons didn't work for whatever reasons you guys had talked about, but it was a knoll that's above the dog park that's currently in Scotch Broom and not really planned to be used for anything else. Does that sound right to you?
Maybe,
Does that
yeah.
sound familiar? Okay, that's what she said she thought. You would
Okay.
agree could be a potential site.
I'd have to look at the map again because I don't know what, I've only seen it a couple of times briefly. What I've seen online doesn't have all of what you guys have.
I think by the end of the year, or we're going to cut a ribbon, I would imagine late November, early December. So,
Okay.
come to the ribbon cutting and we'll walk around and identify a site.
Excellent.
But it's a construction zone right now. It's tough to visualize much.
Right. Actually, the site plans that Stephanie and Zach had gone over with me looked it was cool. It looks like it's going to be a wonderful site. I'm a Port Orchard resident myself, so I would like to see something here. And since that we aren't partnering with the city at this time, and we have such a great relationship with the city of Bremerton and the city of Paulsville Parks, we'd like to investigate that opportunity. So,
I think we're agreeable.
okay, excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I want to make sure I grab my thumb drive before I exit.
I'll ask Stephanie to put you on the mailing list
Okay.
for McCormick Village Park so you can
Yes,
get information on the
please.
ribbon cutting and anything else that goes on out there.
So that was heads
Okay,
up.
that would be wonderful.
And I got one little quick one to add.
Did you already eject it, Carrie, or is it still
No.
plugged in?
It's still there.
Which one is it? D?
D probably.
Alright.
Thank you.
Eject yours. Let's pull out.
Thanks, Carrie.
And then
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
It's on there.
wonder why your drive crashed. And
Nice meeting all of you.
Yeah, you too.
Hope to
Thanks,
see you
Colleen.
again soon.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
thank you, Colleen. Did you want to have any further discussion, or did you want?
I mean, I think we all want.
Keep talking.
We don't have a site right now that meets
Right.
their needs, and
Right.
I think we know what their needs are, and as
I think
Yeah.
centrality is important for me.
Yeah, I would say that, we've talked about doing the park plan update and also updating our parks impact fee. We've got a Phase 3 McCormick project that when Campus Parkway gets built, there's supposed to be a west entrance to McCormick Village Park, and so potentially that could be a component of the McCormick Village West entrance with its own parking area that wouldn't directly compete for parking with the splash pad.
Maybe they have
But we could
grant
also-
opportunities to help with increased parking areas.
Yeah, we could also look at potentially, is there a spot where we could provide parking at Central Park, or make additional improvements at Central Park as part of our parks plan?
Right.
The
I don't know that we can provide make parking, but I think we could. I think there's a way to work with them as far as for their volunteers in particular during the week. I think we could provide a handful of parking passes to, make them exempt from, from.
Right, the 2 hour.
right, but it's
Yeah.
the 75 or 100 people that come as part of their
But if we've got
classroom.
400 people living downtown,
Right.
I think they're walking to it.
Yeah, exactly. I like being able to do something close by. But
Yeah, I agree. I think those are the two
I
logical
think
sites.
she was more concerned about parking than the actual site. It was
Right.
almost,
Right.
and I don't quite agree with that
I-
because I think there is parking that's not next to it but is available. The church has parking lots.
Yeah, my thought was that if a lot of the volunteers are older, they may want to go someplace where they have a parking spot in a parking lot because, parallel parking on the street maybe isn't comfortable for everybody.
Right.
But maybe they could rent from the church or lease space or have an agreement.
For a partnership.
Right.
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna break at 10:30, 10:29. Revisions to chapters 20, 22, and 96.
Yeah, so we just, this is a minor set of revisions that we took to the Planning Commission. We realized that our permit processing chapter, our table, didn't include all of the decision types that we have. And the red line copy, I think, is pretty self-explanatory in terms of what's revised here.
Two different things.
I had a question about a strikeout.
Yeah.
This is 97. This is.
Here, do you want to
Are these two different things, or is this one?
One's clean, one's red line.
All right, you're right. Sorry.
So
I want the red line.
on the red line on page 12, the strikeout of number 8. Applicant shall demonstrate the alteration will not violate the terms of subdivision or binding site plan approval for this chapter. Why was that struck? It seems like it makes sense to keep part of that in. I know that binding site plan will be coming out, but you have an alteration for part of it, shouldn't it also be consistent with what was previously approved?
I would have to go, I don't remember why this was struck.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure off the top of my head either. I mean, I guess if it's an alteration, it's going to the hearing examiner as part of a public process, and so if your previous decision, there was a condition on the previous decision and you're now somehow changing it, it seems to me that as long as it complies with our code, you have the ability to change it regardless of what a previous condition would be.
That's probably, if you look at the strike up here, that's probably why. Look at what you added. Maybe you were trying to
Under
capture
030.
it all under 030.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's correct, but then maybe that's what the thought process was.
so that explanation, makes more sense, that no matter what's approved, it's got to be consistent with the chapter regardless of what was previously approved.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it doesn't hurt to restate it to make it more obvious.
Well, it will not violate the terms of this chapter. I mean,
And then
Yeah, I mean,
that's
I think
stating
too,
the
though.
obvious.
If you had, as an example, if you had a requirement that, so I don't know, something to do with parking as a condition of your binding site plan, and your parking requirements have been reduced, but a previous decision made you provide additional parking, you can say, hey, look, we've reduced these requirements. Why are we providing excess parking for something that now meets our code?
It's worth looking at. So if you have a subdivision that was approved and it's got all these conditions and restrictions and all that, and now you're proposing to alter it, it might be worth maybe softening some language that says prior conditions or terms of approval would be considered. Food for thought. The other thing that I know that was approved last year was a piece of legislation that allowed for jurisdictions to not have to, councils or commissions to have to approve any final plats. That could be taken out. And I was wondering if that's something that we should consider. So, for example, I know the county did this. The commissioners no longer approve final plats. However, we do make them aware of any final plats. So it's not necessarily a formal process, but they're aware of any in their district. And I'm wondering if we should look at that, since that's an opportunity that was given to all jurisdictions.
We talked about it, and one of the things that makes us uncomfortable and maybe wasn't fully thought through, because that was authorized by the state legislature, one of the things that we feel wasn't fully thought through is that when there are bonds are contracts between the developer and the city, and as administrators we can't execute contracts which may be required as a condition of final plat. And so our resolutions to approve final plat typically also approve the bond document that is attached to the final plat for maintenance or performance of anything that wasn't completed. And so by giving us the authority to approve a final plat, the bond would still have to go to council by itself.
Rob? Oh, I didn't know we were reviewing bonds.
Yeah, it's typically the resolution includes language that says the final plat is approved. Mayor or public works director is authorized to execute a performance bond in the amount of whatever, so that it's giving him the authority to sign that agreement.
Makes sense.
Okay.
So that's kind of been my position, and I don't know whether all jurisdictions operate that way, but that was something where in the past I think the city has had staff signing these bond documents, and they are on approved forms that are approved by the attorney. But I've always looked at it and said, I don't have the authority to sign this unless it's explicitly granted in code,
Right.
Which I don't believe that it is.
Okay. All right. All right.
So
Those were my questions.
But we could consider it if you also want to grant the bond approval authority to the Public Works Department.
Well, I look at these kinds of improvements in terms of efficiency and value, and you're essentially approving something that was already given preliminary approval, and so all we're saying is, this meets what was already given approval to begin with.
Correct.
Is there a high value in that.
Yeah, I like it because if something gets missed, it's the council who made the decision and not me. But
you know, the
no, I understand.
council might not catch those to begin with.
Yeah, I think where it gets more complicated is if somebody's bonding, like we had the Indazio plat where they were at their final expiration, they put up a $5 million bond to complete that. I don't want to be in the position of having to accept the responsibility of potentially building $5 million in improvements on behalf of the city without council approving it.
Right. Well,
So-
and if code doesn't allow that, then I get that.
And I think today too, we're nimble enough that I don't know that we're slowing things down too
Yeah,
much.
we're pretty fast on
Yeah.
final plat approvals.
Right. I guess I also take the view that we've got a record level of permit review going on. Anything we can do to help with workload, I think we ought to talk about.
I think you
Look for your direction.
good point that because of the bonds though, and that's a contract, and 9 times out of 10 these things aren't done. You know that
Right.
they're bonding certain improvements because they have the street lights are on back order, or there's certain other improvements that they're doing just
Right.
because of construction timelines.
But the bond is entered into before it goes to final, right?
We don't know.
entering it-
We don't accept the bond until we have authority from council. So we sign the
Okay.
final plat and the performance bond
Okay.
after council approval.
Okay. Well, then I think then we don't change course. All right. Those are the only comments I had. Otherwise, it looked like it was pretty routine stuff.
I have one item that just popped into my head this morning is the design review board.
Did anybody else have? Are we
sorry.
still on this issue?
Yeah, cool.
Anybody else? Okay. Sorry.
I have 2 appointments coming up for the design review board at the end of the year.
Is this the third agenda item?
It's one I just
Pretty good.
Oh, good to
Good
go.
order,
Okay.
I'm sorry. If that's okay.
Yeah.
I just felt appropriate to bring it to this committee to start it here. I notice that, that it's supposed to be, now we've tweaked the responsibilities of the design review board in our new code, okay? And I noticed in the table that Brandy gave me, I think it's a 5 or a 6 member board, and 2 of them are supposed to be professionals, and that's problematic. And I've appointed somebody not knowing that, and somebody prior to me appointed somebody that appear to be lay people. Well, John Purvis is a professional; he's an attorney. I don't know that.
Definition of professional.
what's the definition? And I don't know based on way we've tweaked this. I think this board ought to be more like our planning commission, where it's a group of lay people that are the conscience of our community. But I wanted to. Nick doesn't even know I was going to bring this up today.
So my understanding is that typically design review boards do have design professionals there because you're making aesthetic judgments, and you have to have that level of expertise on the board in order for it to be upheld in court.
We don't have anybody on our board that's a professional, in my opinion. When
We
I
had
look,
an architect from Bremerton that was on there. Did that person step down?
must have.
Okay.
We have.
Yeah, Tony's.
Well, or their spot came open and we appointed somebody else in their place.
Yeah, somebody else prior to me appointed John Purvis, who's an attorney, and he's got the designation P.
What kind of law does he practice?
He's a prosecutor, I think,
Okay.
or a defense attorney, one of the two.
But not land use attorney.
I
Yeah.
don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's very unlikely that our design review board will get used unless we make revisions to our whole process. We wanted to keep it intact because we wanted it to be available for creating flexibility, and if we decided that we wanted to go a different direction with our downtown regulations, we didn't want to disband something that we might want to use in the future.
Yeah, and I don't want to disband it. I just want to be. I just don't. I can't. I don't know anybody that I could tap that lives in our community that would be willing to serve in that capacity. And so I think it's problematic to have that. And I hear what you're saying.
So there's a city residency requirement?
No.
There's
Okay.
not. Okay.
Architects, engineers.
landscape
So
architects.
ideally,
graphic
somebody
designers.
from this area, but not necessarily within the city limits.
Okay.
They gotta be out there.
Yeah, if I'm more concerned about residency.
And willing to serve on our city's board. and
Yeah, right.
and here's the other challenge: is the folks that are doing work here can't be on the board. If you're doing work here, you have a conflict.
Right. How many?
There's a 5 or a 6 person board. 4 of them, the majority, the requirement is 2. I see 2 P's next to 2 of the names, and the 2 people that are in those slots, it's Diane Buchanan. She's got a very nice home. She lives in McCormick Woods, but.
Well, why don't you guys discuss it and bring back a recommendation on how to.
Okay, so we'll
if there's
talk. I
something
just
broken
want.
and it needs fixed, then
Yeah.
I'll let you guys do
I
your
was
research.
never quite sure why we had that group. It seemed like it was sort of the tastemakers to make sure that things looked or fit nicely, and then we wanted to make sure that
Yeah, and it was
professional.
it was flawed because they had the ability to pick colors and and they were an upfront process versus our code being. Now we've changed it so our code is the driver, and if you can't meet our code and you want a deviation from the code, you have this body to go to, which I'm fully supportive of that idea. I just want it to work and to be able to get people in our community to be able to serve.
Okay.
So I'll work with Nick on that. I
mean, could it be an ad hoc body you pull together as needed?
They
It
are.
could be different, but each time it could be a different group.
that's
Because,
trouble.
I mean,
Well,
how
if somebody
often are we
requests
pulling-
it, you would have enough time to react to that to find
Right.
those 2 professionals to serve in that capacity.
Right. I mean, how often have they had to meet in the last?
They've
few
never
years?
met. Well, no,
They've
kinda-
met 4 times in 8 years, and only 2 times did a project actually go all the way through the process.
So that's kind of my point. Is if you could design it so you're pulling these people together at the last moment, whoever
Yeah,
you
maybe
need,
your
and they
professionals,
recognize
they're
it's-
called out separately in that because of the conflict issue, that we understand who we're dealing with, and so we can go find professionals that aren't conflicted.
I like that
And
idea.
then
Yeah, so we've got
We could
we
go
got a
that
group
way.
of residents that are the standing committee members, and then we
call 2 in,
Yeah.
that once we know.
Or
who
maybe
we're
we get a roster of 10 and we just see who's
Right.
available.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Make sure we're finding the ones that aren't conflicted.
okay. Yeah, all right, I like it.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow night.
You can have my paper.